Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's going to wake up and smell the J. Cole. I'm going to be reviewing his most recent album, Off Season, which came out in May. And if you know this channel, you know I try to review things that are less than a week old. Definitely less than a month. But still, sometimes things slip through the cracks. And at the end of the year, the beginning of next year, where there's less new albums released, I'm going to be having this series called Wake Up Professor S, in which I just catch up on some music that I missed that I might like or I might find interesting. J. Cole himself, in a track on this album, he's talking about a beat that he ignored for a year that he ended up using, but he ends up describing the way that I feel about J. Cole, the way I felt about this album. And I quote him now. I probably heard it before, but slept on it, you know? Ish doesn't always connect as soon as you press play. At times, you've got to step away, do some living. Let time provide new prescription, give truer vision. May, it didn't connect for lots of reasons. The main one is when I listen to new albums, I skip around the tracks, I kind of fast forward to hear the middle of tracks, I hear what it's like, and then I usually listen to one song in its entirety, usually the song with the best title. Pride is the Devil, which is a great song, but when I first heard it, I thought, what is this, a TLC outtake? And just said, this is a skip. So at this point, I need to emphasize who I am and who I'm not. Before I had 20,000 subscribers, it was easier for people to understand that I know who I am. But now I have a little bit of success. I am not a hip-hop historian. I am not a serious music critic. I am a full-time professor of French. I am a father of two. I have missed a lot of music. Part of the reason I started this hobby which I picked up in the lobby, was because I recognized that I was missing a lot of great music. I call myself the Rip Van Winkle of rock and of pop and of hip hop. I fell asleep around 2002 and I woke up in 2018 and started paying attention to music. So what did I miss in that time in hip hop? Obviously the main things I missed were J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar and Future and a whole bunch of other people. But really it's Kendrick and J. Cole who are artists who I would most likely end up loving and finding interesting. Luckily, I wound up following Kendrick Lamar because I was still listening to Kanye and he toured with Kanye, and I downloaded on LimeWire, which still existed at the time. I downloaded his albums and I learned to love Kendrick, so I was at least aware of that. And like I knew that that the 2014 Forest Hills album was well respected. And then in 2018, before I even started the channel, I started dedicating myself more to listening to new music. And I saw there was a J. Cole album. I'm like, okay, I've heard of this guy. I know he's serious. K.O.D., King of Drugs. I'm not a fan of that title. I listened to it, but I just didn't have the context. And I need to say this right up front. It's a controversial thing that I do, but I don't go backwards. I may eventually dip into his back catalog, but I'm interested in what artists are now and moving forward. I understand that 2014 Forest Hills is considered one of the best rap albums of all time. Someday I may revisit it. But for now, what interests me is not who is J. Cole in the big sense, but who is J. Cole right now. I was also influenced by, frankly, my son's general disinterest in J. Cole. It could be that he came up with this joke of calling him Jermid Cole as opposed to Jermaine Cole. Jermid Cole. He likes kind of trolling J. Cole fans. But as you will learn, we have both changed our opinion. We both appreciate J. Cole quite a bit. So it's just this general opinion, just like in the house, he wasn't that well respected, and I would hear his music. I think it was sort of fine. Now, I love Earth Gang. I reviewed that album. I liked it a lot. I reviewed Boss's EP from last year. I liked that a lot. But in general, just an off season, there's a lot about basketball. I have kind of a ambiguous relationship about the way that people compare hip-hop to basketball. I understand that it's relevant and that it's necessary and that rappers themselves do it. I understand it is part of the culture. And if I don't like it, it's that I'm wrong and not that the culture is wrong. But it does put an emphasis on the competitive nature of the art. And it is a competitive art. But at times I think people overemphasize the competitiveness at the expense of appreciating the art. But that said, in my mind, I've always thought of Jay-Z as Michael Jordan. I've always thought of Nas, or Nas, however you pronounce his name. No matter how I pronounce it, people are going to get pissed. Nas. I've always thought of him as Reggie Miller. Like just in my mind, like those are the people that that's just how I picture them. So I'm not immune to it. But J. Cole, it turns out, played basketball at St. John's, where Run DMC went. And it ends up getting a little bit annoying. It is interesting that J. Cole was born on an army base. In that way, he's a lot like Kobe. And in a way, he's a lot like Kobe in the way where I acknowledge that he's great and that people love him, but I've never quite been a fan of Kobe or of J. Cole. But why a change of heart? Why am I doing this very, very positive review? And if you're a J. Cole fan and you think I'm just sitting here and I'm just going to be saying how bad J. Cole is and that he's Jeremy Cole, not at all. I think this album is great. I think I need to redo my top 5 mainstream rap albums and put this on there. Matter of fact, there's 3 reasons why I've decided to revisit this album. Now, I did put up a sort of informal poll on my community channel on YouTube, and this did get a couple of votes. But especially in my year-end review comments, everyone seemed to be saying, where's J. Cole? That's the first reason I decided to revisit this week. The second is I reviewed the Nas album last week, and Nas talked about Nas, Biggie, and Jay-Z being like Drake, Kendrick, and Cole. And I thought, well, I may not like J. Cole particularly at the time, but if this is the company that he keeps, I should probably pay a lot more attention. And the third and the most important reason, honestly, the biggest reason, is he did an interview with Nardwuar, and he just came across awesome. He just came across as super authentic, super intelligent, like insightful, funny, kind. Like he seemed like the kind of person that I want to follow and that I want to admire. So this is the other part of it, is I know when I'm sleeping on somebody. You know, a lot of people don't know when they're sleeping on somebody. I knew I was sleeping on J. Cole. And I want to emphasize that if people are sleeping on somebody and they know it, it's not an insult. You know, we can't take everything in. We can't become fans of everything all the time. It's not always going to connect as soon as you press play. You can hear somebody and just say, I'm sure this is great. I just can't do it. I've been saying that about like the films of Woody Allen for like 30 years. I'm sure there's a lot there that I'm going to appreciate eventually. Same thing with Fellini. I'm sure it's great. I know I'm the idiot for not thinking it's great. But that's just how it is. It doesn't always connect as soon as you press play. So as I review this album, let's emphasize my slogan, which is on the bottom of my merch. Ignorance is profound. By that I mean I don't know a lot more than I know about J. Cole. And if you know a lot about J. Cole and you want to fill these comment sections with things that I don't know, with little references he's making, things about his life, do it. Bury me. Absolutely bury me in comments about J. Cole, the things I don't know. Because I also think my ignorance is profound in the way that I have a fresh eye. I'm stepping into the J. Cole game just with this album. Just right here. Oh, hello. Hi. Are you J. Cole? Nice to meet you. So who is he based on this album? Very, very intelligent. Intelligent is a hard thing to say. I mean, most rappers are very intelligent, right? Like that's one of the most underrated attributes of most rap stars. But he's not quite intelligent like Jay-Z. You know, like where Jay-Z, you get the sense that he just sees the world from outer space and that he just sees everything and knows everything. It's more like he has a self-awareness, which is really rare in hip-hop. It seems like a very true self-awareness. It's not a self-pitying self-awareness. Most often, like a lot of these emo rappers, you know, like they talk about themselves, but it's all like, I'm so sad, I'm so sad. Whereas all the way throughout this album, it really feels like he's trying to communicate who is he as a person to you. You know, it reminds me a little bit from his generation of Kendrick Lamar, but I think he does a better job of it than Kendrick Lamar does. Like, I get the sense just from this one album that I really have a good feeling of who this person is, how he feels about himself. He has his head's on his shoulders. He has a good sense of self. He doesn't seem insecure. These are all things which most rappers feel, most pop stars, music stars, feel insecure and like they don't have their head on their shoulders. He has a great mastery of many different flows, but it's never wild. Like, he makes these like, he wears the influences on his sleeves. Like if you pay attention, you can hear his influences. But he never sounds like he's doing just straight imitation. It's always like subtle. He has these subtle fluctuations in his flow, in his style, which require multiple listenings. Which makes me feel, I've listened to this album, I don't know, 7 times. I still feel like I'm missing way too much. Again, put those in the comments after you smash the like bucket and subscribe. So he has all these different flows, all these different styles, but it's never strained. It's very comfortable. That's probably the reason that I didn't gravitate towards him, is I like my rappers to show a little bit more effort. I like to feel a little bit more strain, or a little bit more of a little more stylization, as opposed to J. Cole was a little bit more just down the middle. That's a baseball reference. A layup. His lines sound like layups, not like slam dunks or like 3-pointers. In case you're wondering who my favorite basketball player is, it's Bill Russell. Never saw him play, but I'm from Boston. And he's the greatest Celtic of all time. And end of discussion. Another thing is that he's all, self-aware and all this, but then he also ends up being very funny and clever. He has all these lines which I'm going to point out to you, which make me go, oh! That's the thing about hip-hop, right? I mean, what other art forms do that? Where you can have a song that makes you go, oh my God, he's struggling with all these internal forces that are dragging him down and the external forces from society that are keeping him down. And he's feeling this like sense of loss with his family, and this sense of loss with his friends, and his alienation from his whole world because of his newfound wealth, which feels precarious. And there's a funny little joke. He just threw a funny little joke in there that made me go, oh! God damn, I love it. I love rap music. I do. People spend way too much time discussing what hip-hop can't do. And I don't think they really emphasize enough the things it can do. Like that. You can't have a rock and roll song, I don't think, that hits you over the head and just makes you go, ah! And then also makes you laugh at the same time. The beats on the album, the production is good, but never spectacular. And I think this is on purpose. I mean, first of all, J. Cole does a lot of his own production. I watched that Nardwuar video. He came across as a very honest broker. Like, he talked about where he gets his samples. He talks about how he learned, how he bought his drum machine. It's very cool. But it seems that that's not his priority. His priority are his lines, and the production is there to serve his lyrics. So let me give you an example of his style and what makes him so great. I don't like to do this, but I'm doing it more. My example song, my homework for you to listen to, is the first song on the album. I'll include a link to it up there, 95 South. This is such a great opening, and it does so many of these things that I'm talking about that I think it's the best example of what this album is about. Now, first of all, the title 95 South, that's what connects his hometown of Fayetteville to where he went to college in Queens, St. John's University, went straight to college. And that's interesting just because I grew up in Massachusetts, and I had a girlfriend in D.C., so I used to take 95 South all the time. 95 South is a very important road to many, many people. And it's part of what this album is about his travels, about his journeys, how he ended up where he is. It opens up really strong, these kind of epic horns. It reminds me a little bit of like a Puffy production, like a P. Diddy production from the 90s, like just sort of like this opening horns, this kind of grand cinematic feel. And the first verse, he rhymes everything around ow and round. And I just want to read you some of these lines. This is a lot like the Nas album, where I feel like I could just type out every single goddamn line and just tell you, oh, check this out, check this out, check this out. This ish too easy for me now. Cole been going platinum since when CDs was around. What you sold, I tripled that. Can't believe these effing clowns. Look how everybody's clapping when your 30-song album do a measly 100,000. Beautiful. He's calling out so many rappers who release these albums, Drake, who release these albums, they're like 30 tracks long, Drake, and they know, Drake, that every single time that someone listens to the album, Drake, each one of those songs is going to get you a hit so that your numbers, Drake, get higher and Drake higher, Drake. So you have these outrageous numbers, but here he is, he's like, yeah, but it's a 30-song album. And implied in that is that these songs are weak. There's only, 15 songs on this album. Every song is good. Every song is strong. And it does a measly thou. And then he just has fun with it. I'm betting on myself that I'm going to completely double down. I could put an M right on your head. You're Luigi's brother now. Like saying I could put a bounty on your head, 1,000,000 on your head. Like it's a funny, weird, awfully aggressive line. And then there's an interesting moment later on in the song, which is this. I'm hoping to bring something interesting to the J. Cole argument, okay, to the J. Cole discussion. So he talks about his influences. I've read about his influences, that it's, a lot of it is Tupac and Biggie. And he has this line where he starts off very, very Tupac. Vivid memories. Just the word memories. Memories and adversary. If you want to just break down Tupac into 2 words, it's memories, adversary. Like those are just the words that Tupac knows how to use. And you can just get into a Tupac mode just by saying the word memories. Start to squeeze, we ducking down. And then the second verse, the second line, to me sounds very much like a Notorious B.I.G. line. So many shells left on the ground, it make the Easter Bunny proud. Kind of like internal rhyme, super hard hitting, like Easter Bunny, these big kind of fat words, like Notorious B.I.G. obviously had a big mouth and is capable of creating these Easter Bunny proud. Like I can hear these lines being sung and I can imagine them being Tupac going off to Biggie. But instead, it's right here with J. Cole, right down the middle, with this fairly straight delivery, with this slight detail, a slight indication of Tupac and Biggie in this verse. There's this cool kind of like crunk interlude with Lil Jon who's on here, which is always awesome. And then the last verse, I just picked this up on the last listening. It starts off with talking about meeting your maker. And then at the end, he talks about the bullets sending you to Yahweh, or like sending bullets Yahweh, and then sending you to Yahweh, which is another word for God. So the whole verse begins and ends with the same theme of sending you to your maker. And after all these different flows, he has like this final, like there's kind of a sing-song flow to this last verse, all these crunk sounds in the back, and then he even just repeats himself, like send it Yahweh, send it Yahweh. He has all these super precise rhymes, ridiculously precise rhymes. And then at the end, he just kind of repeats himself and seems to be having fun. And then Lil Jon comes back saying, put your hood up, which, yes, when I first heard that, I thought it was a reference to like, throw your shirt up like a helicopter in North Kakalaka, because he's from North Carolina. So I thought it was like a new thing, like a hooded sweatshirt. But I now understand it's like throw up this sign of where you're from. Like it's like a hand signal thing. I am who I am, a full-time French professor who lives in the suburbs. So that's a good example of just the exhausting variety in this rapper who I, understandably, but very mistakenly assumed was just kind of whatever. Next song is called Amari. Another great song, beautiful acoustic guitar here. The samples are very behind in the drums. In general, the samples are quite like behind the vocals. This has this trap hi-hat work, but it's the style that my son loves. We were listening to this, we're driving around. We were driving around yesterday, and we were thinking about, I'm trying to explain, like, I think we're wrong, son. I think we're wrong that J. Cole's good. Is he, Dad? Yeah. I still like trolling J. Cole fans. I know you do, son. Just I think we're probably wrong. So we sat there in silence listening, and when these drum beats came on with the hi-hat, it's not the standard trap hi-hat where it's very regular. It's a little bit off beat, a little bit staggered. And he's like, I love that. And then J. Cole matches that with a different flow that's a little bit staggered, where it feels like he's trying to catch up. And he gets a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more expressive as the song goes. More funny lines. Want smoke, I'm a whole effing nicotine company. Great sort of doubled voices at certain points. The vocal production all the way throughout this track is great. He even sounds a little bit emo. Then we get to My Life. At this point, when I listened to the album, the last couple of times, I just got so excited. It's a great album when you get excited for the next track because, it's coming. The production style, again, there's a sample in the back that's very low, a bass that's very low, just the vocals are everywhere. And he starts off making a Squarespace reference, which is funny. I think J. Cole watches YouTube. I think he does. I think those are the people who care about Squarespace, are people who listen to podcasts and people who watch YouTube. So, hey, J. Cole, welcome to the platform. And then he has a verse, which I think is important, where He's talking about addiction. But most rappers talk about getting rich off of addicts, right? Making money, selling crack, whatever, right? This is what he says. I'm just a product of poverty, full of narcotics to profit off quickly. My family tree got a history of users that struggle with demons, not really the hustler instincts. Therefore, often my pockets was empty. So here we have, I don't know if it's the first time, it's one of the first times I can think of, where a rapper is talking about, like, what is it to be the fiend? What is it to be on the other side of that equation? Not the person who's making money off the drug trade, but the person who's suffering from it. A hereditary weakness to addiction, hereditary weakness, right? Like having heart problems, okay? Or having large heads or green eyes or whatever it is. It's hereditary. Addiction is very hereditary. So he's talking about this, my family tree, a history of users that struggle with demons. And so he's just speaking very frankly and saying that that's why he was poor, because of this history, which makes the chorus even more powerful. This singer Moray, who I've never heard of, and I love, like a Sam Cooke level, like soul and strength to his voice. Can we get a whole album with J. Cole and Moray? Does that already exist? J. Cole fans like, oh yeah, in 2017, J. Cole Moray released an album called Triple Double. Tell me, that's fine. Tell me in the comments. I don't know. But I love this guy's voice. And what he's singing is important. My life is all I have. There's a whole other aspect to J. Cole, which makes sense based on the Nardwuar interview. He does a lot of meditating, where he's not very materialistic. What does he have is his life. He's very much in the present. He talks a lot about the past. He talks about making money. He talks about these cycles. But fundamentally, he's positioning himself a little bit more as a mystic. I think he's a little bit similar to Kendrick in that way as well, where there's an aspect to where, yeah, he'll talk to you about how much money he has, but at the same time, that isn't what really matters. 21 Savage makes an appear as just 21 Savage. I really enjoy him on this verse. It's a nice kind of break to have a different style rapper. And he says one line which I really like, I disrespect you respectfully. That's great. Applying Pressure, self-produced. This is my favorite song on the album. This might be the best verse of the year. I'm not going to do a best verses of the year because I just don't have the mental space to think about what the best verses of the year are. I'll try and do it next year. I'll try make a little list on my computer of the best lists. But this is just one track which he produced. One part, one verse, and it is just killing the entire time. It is a statement of shut up, I am great. Hey, Professor Sky, if you come back to this, you are going to want to go back in time and smack yourself across the head for thinking that you could sleep on J. Cole. Wake up, Professor S, Professor S. Applying Pressure, started my grind where crime festers, and 9 showing like they in the second trimester. So this is a sign that he not only has kids, but he paid attention to his kid's mother while they were pregnant, because that's when you start to show. It's in the second trimester. So mixing together like nines, like gun slang with like real talking about the gestational process of human birth. That's why throw a shot or two online. I pay no mind to their benign gestures. Like benign gestures? Like benign gestures? What a great way to talk about people taking shots at you that don't matter. And then later, he has this amazing verse. Well, it's still one verse. The amazing part. Ain't nothing wrong with living check to check, because most have to. Instead of capping, why don't you talk about being a broke rapper? That used to be a lot more common. It used to be. In hip-hop. I mean, way long ago. Rappers would rap more often about not having money, about being poor. But now it's this weird thing where you have rappers who come from nowhere, who release an EP when they're like 20 years old and haven't sold anything and have no money, and they're talking about how many Maybachs they have. And it is way more interesting to talk about what's real. That's a perspective I respect because it's real. I talk a lot about authenticity on this channel. I think this is the authenticity that we need. I think it's fine to have fake crack rappers and fake flossers and all that stuff. I think that's fine. But you also need some people who are telling the truth and telling sort of emotional truths. And that's what he's giving us here. That's a perspective I respect because it's real, what it's like to be nice as F, but got distressed to pay the bills. That was me in '08, seeing no cake, not even on dates I celebrated my birth. Why did he say not even on dates I celebrated my birth instead of not even on dates where I celebrated my birthday? Birthday rhymes with cake. He's creating these weird, not quite rhymes all the way throughout here. Just did the mental math and calculated my worth. Ish is crazy. Didn't know I got more M's than the real Slim Shady video. This verse, this line, is what I think disqualifies the whole verse from the verse of the year. I got more M's than a real Slim Shady video. So what, Eminem is 2 M's? So that you have what, $2 million? Like, that's your point? And why are you saying that a Slim Shady video? But I'm not done. He's not done. J. Cole's not finished. J. Cole's not finished. After this terrible corny line, he then says, big boss, less Rick Ross, more like a wavy Hideo. So now the video is here to set up the Hideo Kojima, the masterful video game producer, designer who made Metal Gear Solid. They tote steamers around the way we tippy-toe. Metal Gear Solid is a game that's based on stealth. So he's talking about tippy-toe, and he's talking about Hideo Kojima. So that's why he had to throw that video, that lame Slim Shady video line, to go with Hideo, then to go on to tippy-toe. Hideo, video, tippy-toe. Hideo, video, tippy-toe. I'm tempted, once again, to do my Dora the Explorer. Can you say Hideo, video, tippy-toe? Good job. The song ends with a Martin Luther King quote. Who would think that there'd be 2 songs in 1 year that quote Martin Luther King, and one of them would be a terrible disaster that I don't even discuss because I don't talk about songs I don't like, the one by Justin Bieber, and then this one, where it seems out of place, but it doesn't at the same time. I would like somebody who's not me, somebody who's much more qualified in the history of the civil rights movement and the history of Martin Luther King and the legacy of Martin Luther King in the African American community, to do a study of the usage of Martin Luther King quotes in pop music, because this is bizarre to have Bieber and J. Cole the same year. Like, okay, damn it. You know what? Maybe this article exists. Because, I mean, obviously Malcolm X is used probably 2-1 over Martin Luther King, but that's starting to change. Maybe that'll change more over time. Hot honey water. Punchin' the Clock is the next song. And I like this because it starts off with this quote from a basketball player, Damian Lillard. And a lot of this album is not just about 95 South. It's also about the need to work. That's why it's called the off season. So this whole album has an intro and this song has an intro and an outro of Damian Lillard. And in the outro, he says, in order to get here, I had to do all this work to make it here. So it's all this kind of gentle backwards beat. He makes one of those funny lines, I got more cribs than Habitat for Humanity. He tells this interesting story about when someone gave him a gun when he was a kid, thought it was toys, it was a Glock, this handed me, I busted the trees, was barely strong enough to squeeze. This sort of unsettling story of life. Like, guns make a lot of appearances on this album, but they're rarely positive. They're usually just sort of like menacing, as we'll see later on in the album. I think I'll talk about it, I may not. He talks about how scared he was when someone pulled a gun on him. It's that level of honesty where he's afraid of guns, and we should all be afraid of guns. Everybody should be terrified of guns all the time. It's weird. It's weird that many people aren't, but I like how he admits it and talks about it. 100 Mil is a song which I have only come to like recently. It's kind of a boring beat, kind of these hi-hats and low bass, a very buried synth sample, kind of basketball sounds or sports sounds of a whistle. I like the end with the singing part. I like how he kind of sings in a very kind of Kanye way. I think it's funny that he's confident enough in his relationship with his girlfriend that if Michael B. Jordan called her, she wouldn't pick up. But in general, it's not the strongest track, but I think it's meant to pair with Pride is the Devil, these kind of more melodic songs. Pride is the Devil. Okay, now Sky in May that idiot from a couple months ago heard and just thought this reminded him too much of No Scrubs by TLC, which it does a little bit. But it's so much more. This is maybe the best song on the album after all. I mean, he starts off singing kind of Kid Cudi style. He has this great post-chorus, terrified, paranoid, I'll put you over everything to fill the void, and when you're gone, will I have anything or will I be destroyed? He's personifying pride. Pride fills the void, and when pride is gone, will you have anything or will you be destroyed? It's very Eastern. It's very conceptual about the value of having and the value of being comfortable in your own skin. The last time I listened to the album was about an hour ago. We were upstairs in my son's room. He was like organizing, and as you know, there's a lot of Afghan refugees who are coming to America and they need clothes. So if you have extra clothes, find a local shelter, find a local group that's doing it, because they don't deserve to freeze to death in America. You know, we have some control over that. So anyways, we're going through the clothes, figuring out what are we giving away, what are we saving. And I put this album on. And I just like, I had to stop and make them listen to it again, and I had to read them the lyrics. Because how many songs are there about pride? Not many. Pride makes it act way harder than he really be. Pride hides the shame when the city cuts off all utilities. Pride hide the pain of growing up inhaling poverty. Pride make it feel a way that you unfollowed me. Pride be the reason for the family dichotomy. It got aunties and uncles too proud to give apologies. Slowly realizing what the root of my problems be, it got me feeling different when somebody say they proud of me. The real problem of pride is all right here. And it's a beautiful, challenging verse, and it's important because a lot of hip-hop is based on pride. And here he is questioning its value. Lil Baby comes in, and he's great. One of the great things about doing this channel is forcing myself to listen to a lot of music I wouldn't normally hear. If I hear someone is sing-song, he's Lil Baby, my tendency is just to dismiss him. He's awesome. Every time he is somewhere, he does something good. He talks a little bit about his addiction to lean. I read somewhere that he spends $5,000 a week on lean. It's very sad. I hope he kicks it. Let Go My Hand is a beautiful song with some singing by Boss, who I like a lot. An old school drum beat, very atmospheric sounds over it. Great jazzy production. The whole song sounds like an early 90s jazz rap song. And even the way he starts off, sometimes I question whether or not this ish matters, putting substance into something in a world that's so used to instant gratification. Like the way he breaks up that line, it's a little bit corny, but I think that's on purpose. And the whole first verse is just amazing like that. And then he talks about being a father. And so he just had this whole thing about pride. And these are questions that, why did I read this to my kids? Because I want my kids to understand the dangers of pride. I'm a proud person. They see that, But I want them to know that there's a downside to pride. And here we have this whole meditation on what it is to be a father. Today my son said, "Dad, let go my hand." Reminded me one day he's going to be his own man. J. Cole, are you going to make me cry? Are you going to make me remember when my son was like 8? The first time he asked me not to hold his hand because his friends were around? Are you going to make me cry, J. Cole? You might make me cry, J. Cole. Not cool, J. Cole. That's not cool. Don't make Professor Sky cry just because he's been sleeping on you for 10 years. And my job is to make sure he's equipped. I got to make sure he's not no B, because M's are bound to try him. If I said I was the toughest growing up, I would be lying. I had a fear of getting punched while everybody eyeing. Add to that a constant fear of dying. The pride that was the devil in the previous song is gone, and he's admitting to fear, admitting to weakness, promoting intimacy with his son. That's how his son is going to be a good person. It's by having an intimate relationship with his father. J. Cole, you're going to make me cry. Beautiful singing section at the end with Boss, and like the drums come out and they come back in. And then Puffy comes on, Puff Daddy, to talk about God. And this is great because Puffy was the last person he got in a fight with. That's mentioned in the verse. And it's reconciliation. And he's getting over something. J. Cole's getting over something by having Puffy on here. What's he getting over? What's the thing that he's getting over? What's the thing where he's quoting the guy talking about God that he's getting over? So the guy who's talking about God, having him on the album, is meaning that he's getting over the devil. which is Pride. J. Cole. Now you're giving me goosebumps. Every once in a while, I get goosebumps from something. Those are real goosebumps right there. My hair doesn't usually stick up like that. Interlude is not an interlude. It's like 3 ways through the album. It's not even the shortest song on the album. Great menacing harpsichord and soul sample. A cool voice in the background. Good thing. Very interesting production. A great tight drum, a bass drum, which I just love here. And then my son's style of hi-hat, the kind of offbeat hi-hat comes in, and he talks about things can go up or down. So he had sort of like this he has little pairings throughout this album. So there's the pairing of the Pride and the Hold My Hand or Let Go of My Hand, and then here we have this Pride about like the cyclical nature of fame and success. So it's saying things can go up or things can go down, and that's the other theme of 95 South. 95 South is the other theme, but it's all connected to like up and down. And he's being somebody who has to accept that there's down. This album is sort of just about things being down. And it's okay when things are down because things can also go up. And he's constantly praising himself for being up and constantly acknowledging that sometimes he's down. I like this guy a lot. I like this guy more after listening to his album than I did after the Nardwuar thing. And he may be the most charming person in a Nardwuar interview besides Drake. Drake. If you hate Drake, watch his Nardwuar interviews and you will no longer hate him. But anyways. Great vocal production here, double voice, kind of a funny end line there. Christ went to heaven at 33, so did Pimp C and Nipsey. Just highs and lows. Leads into the next song, The Climb Back, which opens up with a book on tape sample from a book about Taoism. What is more important, getting or letting go? Part of the theme of the album, the importance of not having to have things, but just being and allow things to go away because they will come back. And he opens up the whole song with the line, everything comes back around full circle. Why do lies sound pleasant but the truth hurtful? This is an album about the truth. It's about cycles. It's about highs and lows. It's about truth and lies. It's about pride and humility. It's about all these things all at once. And then also a bunch of really funny lines. Like, see how I flip, like exclamation points. See how I flip, like exclamation points. I went around to every single member of my family. I said, do you want to hear a good line? I said, yeah. See how I flip, like exclamation points. All 3 of them said, oh, like in Spanish? In Spanish, exclamation points are upside down on one side, on the other. I said, no. See how I flip, like exclamation points. And they all said, in their own way, oh! So we had this whole thing about the truth and pleasantness and lies and full circle and all of this great beat, this very pronounced sub bass, great vocal production. And we're able to have these fun punchlines which just make you laugh. Great flow, a little bit more aggressive here. Gets kind of soulful. It's even sort of like, it's kind of charming and low. He asked the question, at times it be feeling the devil winning, but do that mean God lost? Already this is an important question. Is the existence of bad evidence of the absence of good? Got to get my pinky out for my hot honey water on that one. That's all J. Cole's asking you. Does the existence of bad preclude the existence of good? That's the only question. That's why he's asking you here. Why he also does the whole thing about I flip like an exclamation point. And then he ends with the concept of needing a homicide hotline. This felt like it came out of nowhere to me, but that's probably because I am blessed to not have grown up with the trauma of being around homicides. There's a lot of aspects of privilege that people don't know. And if you don't know people who have been murdered, or know people who know people who have been murdered, or know people who know people who know people who have been murdered, like I do, I don't recognize that as being a privilege. But in this country, that is. So the idea of not just a suicide hotline, but a homicide hotline, this made me want to sell like all my worldly goods and like go into business with J. Cole to start a homicide hotline. Because I think this could actually work. That could actually help to have a place where people call and cool off and discuss it. People need help. Angry people need help. Not just sad people. Anger and sadness are the same thing in the brain. Anxiety, sadness, anger, they're all basically the same kind of dysfunction inside your brain. So we should have a line, a telephone line, where if you think you're going to kill somebody, you got to call. I like J. Cole. Close is the next song, a very sad song, all about someone who he used to know, who gave into a life of crime. And as he got further and away, he gets addicted to lean. He ends up having a dream about his friend dying, and he learns that their friend dies. It's a very interesting song because it plays a lot on the question of closeness. And this is another theme which I think is interesting in hip-hop, is intimacy between men. FD Signifier talks a fair amount about these kinds of questions in the African American community. I think it's a larger question amongst all men. How do we allow ourselves to be intimate with people? How do we allow closeness? What is the form of closeness that is acceptable in our culture and in our society and in our gendered expectations of ourselves? How do you be close to a man? He's not close and the person dies. Very good imitation of the song My Man Rich by Biz Markie. If you've never heard the song My Man Rich, beautiful song, very similar. The album ends with Hunger on Hillside. Hillside is, I guess, the street where he grew up on. And the thing about this is hunger. I believe his hunger. I believe it. It's a very cinematic song. It builds very strongly. Again, a very tight bass drum, a cool string loop. The voice kind of gets louder and louder, gets more and more emotional. A little bit of that Kanye singing. At some point, he reminds me of Drake when he sings this whole line about Plan B. But I believe the hunger. I believe he actually is hungry. I believe he is working on the off-season to make the best possible albums. When I wait in my turn like grains of sand inside the hourglass, mainly concerned back in the day with how long I would last. Make a few $1,000s stack with every hour passed, catch you playing inside my lane and I'ma foul your ass. Just straight up saying what he is, what he isn't, how he's thinking about time, fame, success, and the cycles of success. Talked about how he stopped messing around with women, stopped effing with hoes until you realize you're the hoe. Hey, J. Cole. That's too good of a line to just drop in the middle of one of your songs. When you're sleeping with a lot of hoes, you're the hoe. That's an interesting idea. It's an interesting inversion. Other artists might make an entire meal out of that. Might make a song or an album. They wouldn't just kind of throw it in there. Where maybe I was folding a Red Sox T-shirt to give to some Afghan refugees, and I wasn't paying attention. I didn't happen to hear that line. Boss comes in again, sings. I just really love what it is. I just love his singing. And in the background, we hear a sample. God has a plan for you. All you have to do is believe. The sort of subtle spiritual tone of this album too is a lot about believing in yourself and believing in the cyclical nature of life. So I've woken up. I now like J. Cole. Now that you've sat through here, feel free to tell me what have I missed most? How do I catch up with J. Cole? Nardwuar said he has a song about doing laundry. Is that true? What song does he have about doing laundry? Is he is there a serious argument to be made that he's the best? Like right now? Is there an argument like that he's better than Kendrick? I'm not saying yes or no. I am just a French professor who has a hobby that he picked up in the lobby. That's all I'm doing. I don't know where I put my Patreon stuff, so thank you to my Patreons. I don't do it every video, but they help me buy music. Oh, by the way, I'm going to buy this album. I don't know if I can find it. I'm going to buy it. It's great. So I don't know if any new music is coming out tomorrow. If not, I go join my community on YouTube, just the comment section, and tell me what you'd like me to review. What else have I been sleeping on? Maybe I'll review that album that Fantano said was the best album of the year, because I remember listening to it and being like, J-Mid Cole, and I hit skip. Maybe it is as good as he says it is. Okay, until next time, Happy New Year. There's the camera.